to Raunchy Power Hour, a book club for discussing romance from the erotic to the erroneous. As always, this is an explicit podcast and contains strong language, adult themes, and sexual content. If you are sensitive to these things, we urge you calmly but sincerely to turn off your radio now. This month, we are reading Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. This is part 1 of Window Shopping and will contain spoilers through chapter 8. If you want to read along with us, stop listening now. It's okay. We'll wait for you to come back. This book doesn't have any trigger warnings that I've read or noted, so you should be good.
Boring.
Yeah.
I'm your producer, Ashlyn.
I'm one of your festive elves, Sydney.
And I'm the corporate busybody that moved out of your small town and is coming back for the holidays so your mom can pursue me.
Now get ready to get Christmassy.
You get cut out, but Lauren, I don't think you even gave your name.
I never do at this point.
You don't? I didn't know.
I've stopped.
Oh my god.
People just have to be loyal fans to know who I am. If you know, you know.
Oh my god.
Hey, Sydney.
Hey, Lauren.
I'm back and I have a question to ask you.
Oh, you're back. I didn't know you left. What's your question?
My question is, let's say that you sort of were into the whole like workplace, like hireling type, I have an office romance type vibe, right? Theoretically, let's say you're into that.
Okay,
I want to know.
Very theoretical.
Exactly. I want to know what position is like too much of the power imbalance of the person you're pursuing or pursuing you for it to be weird. So like, for an example, let's say you're like a floor salesman at a place.
Mm-hmm.
What, like, would you be weirded out if the CEO approached you, or is the line somewhere much smaller on the chain of command?
You know what? This may sound kind of weird. If it's like, say I'm on the floor, it would be less weird if it were like upper management, like say CEO or something like that. Because they probably weren't in the active hiring process of me coming into a company.
Slay.
They weren't an active part of me joining. So I would say it would get less weird if I do not personally work with them every single day. So I would say where I would get uncomfortable would be like immediate boss, their boss, HR, and then kind of like above that, I'm like, I don't think it'd be as weird as long as they're not directly hiring me.
Okay, so like the manager to your manager's manager, right?
Yes, that like through those levels, that's too much for me.
Okay, respectful, tasteful, even some might say.
Some might say. I don't know.
For me, and I've given this a lot of thought as someone that poisoned her brain in 2014 with the game Mystic Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a line I would cross. like I think for me, I like being a creature that lives a very mysterious private life. And I think if I have to see you every single day in my place of work, where you have to see me at like the pits of my worst demonic self handling like 9-to-5 tasks, I don't think I want you to try and view me romantically, except if you're like the CEO who like has a lot of money and just really likes to have something on the side.
You want to be a sugar baby to the CEO.
I do.
You'd prefer that. I love that. I love that for you.
Was trying to sugarcoat it, but it didn't work.
Yeah, you know what? And thinking about it, I don't think I could ever have my spouse working within the same company as me. I'd be like, leave. Like, I can't have you here.
No, my parents did that for a time, and I truly don't know how they're still together. I would choke my significant other out if I had to.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I'm like, anyway, yeah, we can't have a working relationship and a romantic one and a marriage, so I'm good.
True. Speaking of working relationships, so for this holly jolly, so this holly jolly hot mess, I will be doing the background information on our author Tessa Bailey. Sydney, I believe you'll be taking over our character intros and plot summary.
Yes, I will. And I can also, I'll give you, after we've done our little author review, just some, like what our average reviews are.
Amazing. I actually have a surprise for you ladies.
Oh, I'm so scared.
I don't often do the most, but when I do a lot. And what I've chosen to give you all today, if I can share screen.
Oh no, this is an audio format, so I wonder how a visual is gonna work.
Oh, this is just for you two. I present to you Tessa Bailey, a case study by me, Lauren.
Viewers, what I'm looking at right now is a very tasteful PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you. I stole this template from Microsoft PowerPoint.
This is 7 slides with like a title page and with a template and pictures.
Yes.
Did you cite your sources?
Nope.
It's not MLA format.
Yeah, this is a private viewing. I don't need to be able to share this commercially, just verbally.
Okay.
Now we have the agenda. Think of this as our table of contents. We have introduction to Tessa Bailey. We'll be touching a little bit on the writer's strike controversy. I have also selected a few of her publications, including her first series, which also was a little bit slightly entrenched in controversy in and of itself, that we'll be going through, and then just a little bit of info on window shopping before I pass it off to Sid for reviews.
Okay.
All right, introducing Tessa in this really small picture that I included of her. So,
a minute, I can't see it.
What do I do?
I can see it now. You're good.
Okay. This is like in school. I'm like sweating profusely under my arms because I want this to work. Okay, so Tessa is originally from California, which I think colors a lot of the writing style in this. But lives in Long Island with her family. I believe she has a daughter and a husband. She originally majored in English during college. And per my count, which this could be absolutely wrong as someone that's totally shit at math, and also for an author that has published a shit ton of books since she started, she has since published 55 books as of this year.
Holy, that's a lot. Well,
I don't know how you... Yeah, I don't know how
that's a lot.
I don't know how you do that. Like, do you have time for anything else? Are you using the bathroom? I don't know. But she has been dubbed by Entertainment Weekly as the Michelangelo of Dirty Talk, and has self-proclaimed herself to focus her romance genres on specifically like stubborn blue-collar men and, quote, loyal, lovable ladies, which we'll delve a little bit into. Now, we also wanted to touch on a little bit of controversy that Miss Tessa Bailey has been entrenched in recently. As you all may be familiar, there was recently a big like actors and writers strike. And I believe it was revealed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sid and Ashlyn, that she had signed a contract with HarperCollins, a massive publishing company, as many of you probably know. And then that news was released in the midst of the strike that was going on. Obviously, this caused a lot of backlash of like, hey, thought we said we weren't going to do this. I thought we were advocating for better writers' rights. It's a tongue twister. And then she came out in a massive like Instagram, social media post basically saying like, oh, well, she had signed the deal prior to the strike, but they released the news of said deal after the strike happened. I think it's sort of the issue was let go after a while from what I had seen online, but I don't know. Any thoughts?
You know, I would get why people are upset about it. I don't think it's like a cancelable offense. I mean, I also just hate cancel culture in general. That's just me. But I definitely see why there was controversy because, like, hey, girlfriend, we're all like trying to be unified in a united front, and you just got signed by one of the biggest publishers in the world. So, like, not cool. I would get why people are upset, and like, I think I was also upset at the time too because I was just like, damn, that's scummy.
Yeah, I think regardless of like what people felt about it, I think there's also too, like you touched on cancel culture, a little bit difficult thing, I think, to cancel someone that has already like really excelled within the field of like publishing, because at the end of the day, she did sign with HarperCollins, and so like lucratively, she's going to be doing really well in the future. And from what I've seen, none of this impacted her sales. She's still massively selling tons and tons of books, and her popularity on Book Talk is still pretty infamous. But speaking of Book Talk, from my own digging, I don't know if this is actually true, but from my own digging of reviews of Tessa Bailey's books, what seems to be the most popular among like kind of the Gen Z, early millennial generation that's on TikTok is Hook, Line, and Sinker, It Happened One Summer, Secretly Yours, and Lover or Loser. Unfortunately, we did not read any of those. So the first...
Oh my!
Her first adventuring into the publishing world happened in 2013 with her Line of Duty series, which, and I wanted to touch on this, in my deep dive of research on her, she has most of her information on her like self-made author website, is like tessabaileybooks.com or something like that. However, on that website, it states that there are 6 books in the Line of Duty series. I featured 4 here for Sydney Nash's viewing pleasure. On Amazon, though, if you go to look at the Line of Duty series, it says there are 5 books in the Line of Duty series. So it seems to be a lot of discrepancies, and there are multiple series of hers that this occurs with. But I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate how she pumped out 4 books, each within, I'd say, 2 to 3 months of each other as well. Like, these were back to back to back.
That's insane.
I would also like to highlight some of my personal favorite series and the descriptors that she wrote about them on her website. I will read these out for the audience. There's also Beach Kingdom, which is a 3-part series that is described as summary, sexy lifeguard heroes with an average rating of a 4.1 across the entire series. There's also Made in Jersey, which is probably my favorite. It's a 4-book series described as, quote, factory workers in NJ, Ink/Spice with a 3.73 book rating across the 4. There's Hot and Hammered, which is a 3-book series described as rom-com, HGTV inspired with a 3.65 across the trilogy. And then the And now this series I really want to read on the podcast. I will literally cause violence if we don't. It's called Phenomenal Fate. And it's a 3-book series where she writes vampires and fated mates, which doesn't really blend in with the whole blue collar vibe unless they're blue collar vampires. Who's to say?
Blue collar vampires. Oh my gosh.
Maybe Edward Cullen got a job at, like, I don't know, a construction site.
It's just Jasper, but he's like still has like those conservative roots because, you know, he's the Confederate Army.
Instead of battle scars, it's injured on the job. So now we're going to be introducing a little bit about Window Shopping, the book that we chose to read. And I had to steal this quote from our lovable resident, Cindy, where she said in our group chat today, quote, "This book is a walking HR violation." And I felt that was better fitting than any of the other ones I saw online. And
thank you.
Now, Sydney, if you would do the honors of reading the actual back of the book for Window Shopping, I would love to hear what the actual back is, and then we can get into this last slide here that I wrote.
Well, of course. So for listeners as well, this back of the book is the whole reason we picked up this book in the first place, because originally we did want to read this book last year, But then we decided to start the podcast and we didn't have time to finish it. So here we go. 2 weeks before Christmas, in all through Manhattan, shop windows are decorated in red and tea and green satin. I'm standing alone in front of the famous Vivant department store with a charming man named Aiden ask my opinions of the decor. It's a tragedy in tinsel, I say, unable to lie. He asks for a better idea with the twinkle in his eye. Did I know he owned the place? No. He put me on the spot. Now I'm working for that man, trying to ignore that he's hot. But as a down on her luck girl with a difficult past, I know an opportunity when I see one, and I have to make it last. I put my heart and soul into dressing his holiday windows. I'm working without stopping, and when we lose the battle with temptation, I'll try and remember I'm just window shopping.
I'm snapping like at a poetry slam.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Doesn't that sound so nice and lovely and holiday cheery?
It rhymes. So yeah, I'm like, it definitely feels very, what's the holiday rhyme? You know exactly what I'm thinking about.
I don't think I do.
The house.
Unfortunately. Oh, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
Not even a mouse. What is that rhyme? You know, people will know it. Silent Night. No, it's not that either. Never mind. I said that so confidently. I said that so confidently.
Okay, so for starters, it's the night before Christmas. And also that the back of the book is literally like a parody of The Night Before Christmas. It's the rhythm it follows.
Yes, yeah. I know. That's what I was trying to say. I'm just stupid. Leave me alone.
Silent Night. Yes. No, it was a super cute synopsis on the bat, but I don't know about y'all, but after reading this book, I didn't feel like that quite fit the bill. And so you want to know what I wrote as an honest synopsis?
Yes.
So for listeners, this contains very minimal spoilers. It's an out-of-context summary by yours truly, and I will read as follows. A holiday-themed reverse grumpy sunshine, boss/employee, forbidden romance standalone that should remain that way, where self-proclaimed tragic goth girl Stella gets handed a job as a window dresser on a silver platter, despite being independent and alternative. Grr. From the human version of Goofy, but only if Goofy had been drowning himself in Coors Light and too much porn, Aiden Cook. Apparently, she's got a tragic past that makes her misunderstood and claustrophobic. He's got an HR problem and a savior complex. They're perfect together and have a lot of vanilla sex. And there's a plot in there somewhere that tries to be a lot more than it actually deserves. But we'll get to that.
Beautiful.
Thank you for my presentation. Or my TED Talk, whatever. I don't want to
see now. I'm snapping.
No. Anyway, it's review time.
It is review time. So before we go fully into review, I'll just say on Goodreads, we have an average rating for window shopping at 3.75 out of 5 stars out of 65,389 reviews. And on Storygraph, this is our highest amount we've seen on Storygraph so far on our books. We have an average, like out of reviews, not our highest rating. On Storygraph, we have an average rating of a 3.61 out of 5 stars with 11,668 reviews.
Damn!
At this time of recording. And before I introduce characters, I just want to talk about this beautiful review from Storygraph, which is by someone named Sophia Oliveria. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But she has a very long and actually in-depth review. But I'll just read part of this first paragraph because basically she says, I was aware going into this book that there was a high chance of me not liking it that much due to it being so short. I like my slow burn and my long ass books. I'm not gonna lie. So I knew that it was going to be a Christmas rom-com. It would be too developed and it wouldn't only focus on feel good vibes. But I still think it could have done with a lot more depth, especially with Stella being freshly out of prison and overlooking so much of the trauma that has come with it made it quite unrealistic to me. Another thing for me was the lack of communication between Aiden and Stella. All of their doubts towards their relationship that led to the main conflict couldn't be resolved with a single conversation. It was literally just them assuming each other's feelings towards each other in certain situations. And I was like, I don't know, just talk to each other? And yeah.
So much more eloquent than the review I found.
Yeah. She also said it just didn't feel very Christmassy.
That's funny. That's actually what this review that I have says. Would y'all like to hear it?
Yes.
So this is by C. Demogo, I think it's a username, on Amazon, who titles the review Rated R. And I'm just going to read it as follows. Usually I read books about the Vietnam War or on survival. This being the Christmas season, I decided to expand my reading genre and get a holiday read. Window shopping has a holiday theme, but readers be advised, this is not a Hallmark version of A Christmas Story. While I am not a prude, I was completely surprised by the sexual content of this book. The sexual encounters in this book are very graphic. What's disappointing is that the story and the characters could have carried the book without the graphic details. So readers be aware that this is a rated R Christmas story. I'd like to give the book 2.5 stars in its present form. Probably a 4-star book if it had a few less chapters on sex. Maybe all of the author's books are like this, so those who follow Tessa Bailey probably do so for this reason. Me, I'll go back to my books on Vietnam.
Maybe you should, because you obviously don't have a taste in fiction. You think the plot carried this book? You think the plot?
I saw that video. Started with, I definitely read on Vietnam War and survival, and I was like, I have to read this.
You have to. You know what? I would say this is a very drastic change from the Vietnam War and survival.
I felt like I was surviving reading this book.
I did. Same here. All right. So with that, let me introduce our main characters. So first, we've got Stella Schmidt, who is our recent ex-convict. She's the grumpy to the sunshine, and she likes windows. Specifically, she likes dressing them. That's kind of all we know about Stella. She's got like somewhat of a quote-unquote tragic past, which is kind of revealed throughout the book. And then we've got Mr. Aiden Cook, who is the sunshine to the grumpy. He is one of the owners of Vivant. It's basically like a higher end Macy's kind of store in New York City. And he's Southern, and that's about all you really need to know about Aiden. He's got some family issues, but that's about it. And then kind of going into characters that are not really main characters, but they are talked about a lot. We've got Uncle Hank and Aunt Edna, who help raise Aiden, and Aiden just has a lot of interesting stories about them because, you know, they're your typical, just funny, crazy hillbillies. Like, they're your typical crazy rednecks who just get up to a lot of shenanigans. And then I just kind of grouped a lot of these people together. We've got Jordan, Leland, and Seamus, who are all employees of Vivant. Kind of the only important thing is that with Jordan and Seamus, what? Is that not how you say his name?
Seamus.
Mm-hmm. You can see my dyslexia coming out. His name is Seamus. I'm going to keep calling him Seamus in my head. So, in my head, not on an audible format. Leave me alone. But yeah, they're all employees of Vivant, and Seamus and Jordan, they like each other. And they have a... Did I say it again? Seamus. Yeah, I can say the name. I'm just dumb. I just keep going Seamus. I like the way I pronounce the name better. Leave me alone. And then we have Nicole, who's Stella's convict friend who caused the felony. And yeah, I mean, yep, those are kind of all the important people you truly need to know about. I do have a tab index, but we don't have to go over that. It's just a lot of like, why would you even think, say, or do that thing? Slash millennialisms, as I've been calling it. We've got corny Christmas pun slash mentions. Too much in the head talking, as I like to call it, because there's a lot of internal conversations which could have been taken out. We also have a tab that just says Aiden gets creepy. And then we have another tab just directly for Aiden, which says, what the fuck did Aiden just say? I'm talking about all of his weird stories. And then we have my favorite tab, which is I make the face. And that face is when I cringe and I just have to like look away from the book and like put the book down because I'm cringing so hard.
That happened many times in audio format for me as well. It was bad.
Yeah, it was either I made the face or I laughed out loud, like just cackling because this was dumb. Anyway, chapter 1, Stella. So our book opens up with our girl Stella standing at the Vivant window. And again, we had like mentions of some sort of Christmas rhyme because she's just like, oh yeah, I don't understand. Like, I wouldn't say like elves were like nipping at my heels to bring me here, like Christmas magic or anything. Because, you know, she just never goes down Fifth Avenue. Because she's not the type of girl. Anyway, she's standing at the window looking at the display and is like, this is awful. And the scene in front is like penguins making the gifts on a conveyor belt, which apparently is awful. When suddenly a man bumps into her and she wants to scream out needle dick for no reason. Don't know why. That would be something you would think immediately when someone runs into you, but okay.
That feels like a millennialism to me.
Yeah, that is the the tab that is next to that line. Brilliant. So you guessed correctly. And anyway, suddenly, not the same man who ran into her, a different man who is very handsome is standing next to her. And she kind of like tries to ignore him, which is when Aiden gets creepy for the first time because he's just standing there. And he goes into basically he is asking her opinion on the window. And she kind of like ignores him and like he goes into a weird Aunt Edna and Uncle Hank story. She puts in her earbuds to ignore him to tell him to go away, and he just stands there. And she eventually pulls one out and is like, what do you want? And he's just like, oh, I was just waiting for your song to be done so I can keep talking to you. And I'm like, I would pepper spray him immediately. Like, that's so creepy. Don't do that. So we asked her opinion on the window. She like gives this very, very detailed description. And also people stop and stare and listen to her description of the window. And it just reminded me of like the thing on the internet when someone says, and then everybody clapped.
This moment was like the definition of an ick for me. Like it was the first time I had to pause the audio.
I did write, why would people stop? It's fucking New York City. Next thing they say is that they're cheering and clapping. Because I'm just like, there's so many other interesting things than listening to a girl rant about a window. Like how she would dress a window.
I literally wrote in my notes about this moment, quote, she goes on an obnoxious, quote, I'm the clever, snarky main character, Clara Oswald in Doctor Who type monologue where she rattles off a whole bunch of anti-consumerist bullshit about assembly lines.
Exactly. So. But then this whole thing is about being a consumer and, you know, making this place money because, you know, it's a high-end department store. So what do you expect otherwise?
But it's her dream to contribute to the consumerist market.
I know. Anyway, so this is when we find out apparently Stella really, like, her dream job is to be a window decorator. And I was like, didn't know that could be a job that you would want. I mean, I know window decorating is like a real thing, and there is artistry behind it. Didn't know you could dream of it. Anyway, so Aiden is like amazed by her description, is like, wow, that would really work. And she like tries to run off, and she kind of finds out he's connected to Vivant. He doesn't reveal fully how connected he is. But he tells her to apply for the window dressing job. And she like runs off, and she's just like, no, I can't do that. Also, why is he so hot? Like, literally at one point, she's like, why is like my heart beating this fast? And and I'm like, you find him attractive. Like, that's not crazy. Like, you're not all dark and mysterious because you're just like, suddenly I've never felt like a human connection before.
So many romance books write that kind of stuff of like,
yeah,
why am I getting nervous? Blah, 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 to like drag out tension. But when you have a book this short, that just doesn't work. It sounds stupid. I think it doesn't work most times, but especially
never works. It doesn't work. Like, I would get it if like we were in an actual slow burn book and this has been like a character established relationship where they've kind of like known each other, or like we've been with this character and there's been multiple attractive like characters, and now suddenly they're having a reaction to like someone new, or it's like, and they're in a different situation. That would work.
That's good. That's true.
When we have no idea why this woman is just like, she's just being emo to be emo, because she's just like, I'm just so dark and mysterious.
I'm not okay, or whatever Gerard Way says.
She's also wearing like all, and this is not to hate on emo culture or alternative wear. I will not hate on that. I think it's just when you combine it with just cringy like 2010s writing. But yeah, she's wearing like, I think, a skull sweater and like all black and all of that. She's very edgy.
I think it's the fact that you can tell so heavily in the writing itself that the author is not like of this like subculture of like fashion and you know, I don't know what other word I'm looking for, but you know, hasn't been immersed in this culture. Yeah. It's like somebody looking from the outside looking in and writing about what they think an alternative dressing person would dress like in. And I think that's why it comes off so cringe. Yes.
Yeah, or would like think about. And it's just like, no. I did write down, if you find him attractive, it's not a fucking disease.
Oh my god, why am I sweating? Am I dying?
Yeah, basically. Anyway, she goes home and she's just like, well, like, I shouldn't apply because I'm an ex-convict and I like don't have experience in this. And then she's like, fuck it, I'm gonna apply. So she does. That's the end of the first chapter. Lauren, do you have any thoughts at the end of the first chapter?
You know, I think the problem was that I didn't have any thoughts because I listened to the first chapter and the only thing I could keep thinking was about the movie Elf starring like Will Ferrell. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is like if Elf was for people that aren't funny. I'm sorry, Miss Bailey. It wasn't hitting with me. It was a little bit too much. I'm your manic pixie dream girl. I'm about to fuck up this corporate straight-laced guy's life and make him realize a bunch of things about himself because only an attractive woman can make him realize these in-depth emotions about himself, and that's inherently problematic, but we're going to worship anyway. Yeah, no, I couldn't get past it.
Oh my god, anyway. You just made me click that our girl still is a manic pixie dream girl. It didn't click for me, but now it did.
It clicked for me like somewhere halfway through the book. And if we end up getting there and I remember, I'll tell you what that moment was. But I literally had to write it down. I was like, oh my God, this is Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
Yeah. I forgot to say this. We do POV switch again. So far, we have not had the greatest run with POV switches, because I did write, when I saw the name Stella at the top of chapter 1, I just went, POV switches, ... again, ... Yay.
I think it's because it's baked into the fiber of my being that I want to will they, won't they. And that just doesn't work 90% of the time when you have an alternating POV, because you're inside both people's heads.
Because
so
you know what the other person wants. Yes.
I hate it.
It would work. This book would have worked so much better if we just stayed in Stella's head, but at the same time, I would want to strangle Stella.
I do prefer Aiden's POV simply because it's so fucking goofy. But I agree. I think logistically it would work better from Stella if she was just a more like appealing character to read.
Yeah. Anyway. We move into chapter 2, and guess what? Today is gonna be a good day. Why? Because Aiden apparently likes to manifest. But he is aggressively sunshine, like aggressively the sunshine too. This grumpy sunshine. He's like, gotta love Christmas. Christmas is like my whole personality, and also I'm country. Even though, like, I just like to throw in random Southern quips talking about the Mason-Dixon and all of that, and also like. I'm very blue collar, even though I'm a multimillionaire. It's just like
the goofy fucking Southern euphemisms. What I mean, like I saw red.
And I think this is particularly aggravating. I think for the three of us too, because we all met in a very Southern state, and we know people who've like. Grown up, like both of you grew up down here in the South. I did not, but I don't think Southern people think this way.
No, and even if there are people that do this, some of these sayings are so like out of left field and nonsensical that this was before I did the author background research. Yeah. I had a feeling that the author was like from the West Coast just because of the way that it felt like an SNL character of like backwater South, and I was like, we for a ride on the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, boy, howdy.
Also, I love that he's just like, oh yeah, but I moved to Tennessee, and I'm just like, that's the most Southern state you could have chosen for all of this.
It was giving Louisiana at the least, and Tennessee, and I was like, all right.
I would either say. I would say Louisiana or like I hate to say this, but Jordan, like non-urban Georgia.
That's valid. I will agree with that.
Yeah. But that's what it was giving, and it wasn't. So yeah, basically, our guy, we find out that Aiden is actually an owner of Vivant. He is a part of the family who owns the fucking store. And he is the general manager. But he gets up to his office and he can't stop thinking about that beautiful, dark, and mysterious stranger he met on the street who had all these amazing window ideas. And he speaks to his assistant, Leland, and about it. And Leland goes, oh, by the way, already went through it, combed through, made sure we only got the people who are actually qualified to do the job. And he's just like, I don't think that dark and mysterious girl was like on that list. And Leland's like, oh yeah. And then like what's crazy is we actually had one girl who applied who's an ex-convict. And he's like, what's her name? Leland's like, Stella. And he was like, she sounds like a Stella. Anyway, so he you go.
Sorry, I was just gonna say this scene pissed me off so much because he had just spent 5 minutes total talking to this chick on the street, and he makes a comment about how even though he didn't know her name, he would be able to pick out her application purely by how it sounds. And I was like, you are delusional.
Delulu. This man is Delulu.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so he's just like, that's her. So he looks up into her application, finds out, yeah, she is, and she has just recently been released from prison. She has no references, no education, which I didn't know you could get education for window dressing. I'm sorry, I'm shitting on this career. Make your money the way you need to make money. And I think she was like just talking about being like in marketing and consumerism. I'm like, I feel like you need a liberal arts degree to do. I feel like that's not your. I feel like yes, the marketing and that is kind of your job, but like more of like being able to actually like build the shit or like paint is like more what you need. But that's just me. That's just coming from someone who actually has a liberal arts degree.
Yeah, I feel like almost like a theater / like set design type thing would be more conducive to this, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I do feel kind of bad that I'm shitting on this, but it's just such a wild out thing for someone to say, I want to be a window dresser. It's very odd. Anyway, so Aiden reads up on all this and he's like feeling guilty. He's like, I can't bring her into interview. There's all these other people who have like so much more experience. And like, I just want to like open the job so I can see her again. So what does this man do? This man decides to allow to interview all of the applicants, including everyone who is overqualified and extremely underqualified, just so he could possibly see this woman again.
I popped off in my notes at this point.
Same here.
All right, I just want to read it. I said, quote, he calls everyone up in the utter rejects pile out of quote unquote fairness. This is wasting company resources and still not doing this fairly because he's holding out for Stella in his mind. This is an inherent bias that he brushes off as, quote, I don't feel a twist in my gut, rejecting all the other applicants, when in all actuality, he's actually hoping to see Stella regardless of her qualifications.
Exactly. And now this is why... Arguably, I know this is a terrible example of a boss employee romance book because it just starts off on the wrong foot. Like, it has started off horribly. So, I apologize for everyone who actually loves this genre because I'm about to shit on it. Because I basically said the same thing. I wrote, it's super weird that he opens up the application to everyone just to keep try to sleep with a girl, like, or like he finds her attractive. Like, no matter what he sees in her, you are wasting everyone's time. Plus, it's extra gross. Because yes, she can draw and she has like these great ideas. But that's all she has is like, yeah, she can draw and she has great ideas. She has no references. She has no experiences or education. And like, that is not how the job process works. And it's gross that an employer is trying to employ someone just because he finds them attractive. Like, yes, I know he's meant to be the quote unquote like good guy. And like, no, he's like going to follow the rules and do this properly. But there's an inherent bias when as a boss and an employee. Like,
if he really wanted to do this fairly, he could have at least done like a hiring panel with like him and like one or two other people.
But you know he's not going to do that because he wants to fuck her. He wants to have sex with her.
He wants the mini bangs. He wants them in his mouth like a horse eats hay.
Oh my god, I hate that. We don't need to bring up horses again. We've already brought up horses in a book.
I'm gonna bring it up every episode.
God. So yeah, hey listeners, if you want, start a drinking game with how many HR violations are in this book. You will be drunk by the end.
That's beautiful. Y'all should do that.
I'll say, drink responsibly. Drink responsibly, but also help us count how many HR violations you find. Anyway, so yeah, it's like a day or two later where he's conducting the interviews, and he's Stella is the last one because of course she is. But he's just interviewed someone who's like very overqualified. Anyway, he's like sitting in the interview room, and then he hears like the door close from like down the hall, and he's like, "It's her." So he like runs to the stairwell And he's like, hey. And she's like down a couple sets of stairs, like wanting to run because she's just like, you don't want me. Like, why would you want me? Like, you've obviously seen my resume. I am so underqualified for this. And he's just like, I just want to talk. I just want to like look at your designs and stuff. So then she shows him her stuff, and yeah, it looks good. And he's just like, well, since you don't have any references, I think we'll just do a trial run and see how things go. So then that's how Stella becomes a temporary employee of Vivant, because she's tasked with redoing the window. Because this is an important note, apparently the window looked like Penguin Chernobyl is how they describe it. Because the penguins were like working on a conveyor belt, and she was like, yeah, people don't want to remember that, you know, their gifts are mass produced or anything. And I'm just sitting here being like, baby, that's all Christmas is. That's all late stage capitalism is.
Can someone, for the love of all things holy and unholy, explain what Penguin Chernobyl means?
We couldn't figure it out.
Have no clue. No clue.
I'm just imagining like mutated penguins, like 2 heads or like multiple flippers, and they're just like zombie penguins.
Yeah, I'm just like, we know what these things mean separately as their own entities, but putting them together in the context of window dressing, feels like a quirky millennialism of like, haha, look at her funny metaphors. She's edgy.
It's like, what metaphor? You're combining a cute Arctic, well, not Arctic, they also live in Australia, but like a little flightless bird who likes to live primarily in ocean water, and then a horrific nuclear accident. How did those two come together?
Penguin Chernobyl. I'm gonna get that tattooed on my body.
Yeah, that has been our group chat for this month, by the way, listeners. As you know, we like to change our group chat, and it's been Raunchy Power Hour. Penguin Chernobyl.
God.
And now, chapter 3. We're back in Stella's POV. And it instantly opens with her being referencing Pentatonix Christmas music. And no hate to Pentatonix. I think they are a very talented group of individuals, but
they're also very heterosexual coded.
Sorry. Which is so crazy because 2 of their main singers are very much homosexual.
I know. I had this debate with a friend recently, actually, so I'm glad this comes up, but we literally were texting each other. We were like, another one of our friends is really into Pentatonix, and I was like, I don't think I have the heart to tell them that that's a very straight thing to like. Of context, this friend is not straight. And we had to send out a poll to our friends of like, is liking Pentatonix inherently heterosexual? And it won.
Yes. And liking acapella in general is so straight. It's such a straight form of music. And again, no hate to Pentatonix themselves.
All the love to my boyfriend, who is a straight man who did acapella.
He's so straight. He's so straight. But yeah, but the hold Pentatonix had on 2010's Christmas music still has a hold, has an iron grip. When I hear Winter Hymnal with the clapping and the snap and then the snapping they do, I'm like, damn, it's Christmas time. It do slap. I will give it that. But it was just like so screaming, like millennial, just like in your face. But yeah, so it's Stella's first day on the job. So she does, you know, HR things, first day things, signs paperwork, and begins working, taping up the window to begin working. And basically, she like goes out to go grab supplies, and she runs into Jordan, which is where we meet Jordan for the first time. And basically, like, she describes her outfit, and she's just like, oh yeah, everyone here is like wearing like these nice clothes, and I'm wearing a skull sweatshirt black tights and a black skirt. And I went, girl, you are working at a high-end store, not fucking Hot Topic.
Foaming at the mouth. Can we also talk about how she wore combat boots to her job interview?
She wore combat boots to the job interview. I was just about to say that.
And a bodycon sweater knit dress. I'm sorry. What is this?
Oh my god.
I had an alternative phase recently. Okay, I wore monochromatic black clothes. I wore,
I was here for this, so I can.
Jeans. Yeah, it was a whole thing. Never in my life would I ever think to put on a sweater bodycon dress, ripped tights, and combat boots ever, but certainly not to a job interview.
Oh my god! Yeah,
I was offended. I was a personal attack.
I do too. Yeah. Anyway, so she goes and meets Jordan, and they have a little bit of witty, like that best friend in a romance movie banter, and they're like working things out on how to get more sales into the store. When we get Seamus, I said the name right this time. He's a custodian, and he walks up, and he's horny on main for Jordan, and Jordan low-key loves it. And I'm like, you should, queen. You should have a man who openly just wants you all the time. And she's just like, no, I can't be with him because, he's so much younger than me. He's only a couple years younger. Anyway, we'll get into that later. So we get introduced to those two lovable characters who just kind of show up throughout. And then we kind of get a time jump where Stella has been working all day, and it's really, really late now. And she's like, oh, time to go home, time to lock up. But oh no, she's locked herself in the window. Oh no! And so this doesn't seem like that big of a deal until Stella suddenly realizes she has claustrophobia. Most likely from being locked up and being incarcerated. So I don't want to make too much fun of this because I don't know how real that would be, and obviously making fun of a phobia isn't cool. So we won't get into it too much. But basically, the funny part is that she tries to call it out to Seamus, and Seamus is listening to his music, so he can't hear her. So instead, she somehow gets a hold of Aiden's phone number, because she hasn't seen him all day. And she calls him and is like, hi, I've locked myself in and I'm freaking out. And he literally runs from the top floor of this very expensive department store all the way down to the ground floor to come let her out. And he's on the phone trying to calm her down, be with her while she's anxious. And he literally opens the door and it's like, I'm here, sweetheart. And I literally wrote down, if my boss ever called me sweetheart, I would throw up in my mouth. Because then he, for no reason whatsoever, there's no reason for him to have done this. He picks her up and then carries her across the ground floor into the elevator and then back up to his office.
This is the part of the book where I wrote, this man is a walking HR violation.
Yeah. I was like, there's number 2, guys. There's number 2 for you.
Drink.
So yeah, he carries her upstairs, and they're obviously attracted to each other. They want to bone real bad, and they both realize no, they don't realize yet that they're mutually attracted to each other yet, but it's pretty damn obvious. Anyway, so while Aiden is getting closer and kind of wants to make out with her in his office, she randomly just drops to push him away and be like, hey, we can't do this. She goes, by the way, I committed armed robbery. That's why
Can we pause? Okay. I want to read a note that I wrote in chapter 1. This is when she first mentions that she was previously incarcerated. And I wrote, hold on, let's see if I can find it. There we go. I said, recently spent 4 years incarcerated for a crime she does not regret committing, but does not name. And in parentheses, I put, I'm banking on it being something related to stealing or disrupting a bad advertising arrangement or something hallmark and stupid. Because I could have sworn this was going to be some like, oh my God, like the whole book, it was going to go like chapters and chapters without them revealing what she actually did to get sentenced. And it ends up being like, hey, I came across this really heinous window display and I just had to like barge in and fix it. And then they like arrested her for like trespassing or something stupid.
Yeah.
Then she comes out the gate being like armed robbery. And I was like, oh, this is.
And then on top of it, another charge on top of it is attempted manslaughter.
Yes. And she was out in 4 years. And I was like,
it's because of good behavior. Because I'll just reveal this now so you guys don't have to go through the pain of what we had to go through.
yeah.
Basically, she was a part of an armed robbery. It went wrong. No one was meant to get hurt. The person that she was with, who is Surprise Nicole, the ex-friend who also got convicted, she shot a man, and the man was hurt. He did not die, but basically Stella is the one who called 911 and then also stayed with the man to help his injuries. So that's how she got a shorter sentence. But at the same time, I feel like that'd be a little more than 4 years, but I don't know the law. I don't know things. I'm just
like the whole thing of her getting a shorter sentence, and we'll probably talk about this in our second episode, but it didn't feel that short compared to her, you know, partner in crime who, you know, I'm just, we'll get there when we get there.
We'll get there when we get there. We'll get there when we get there. Yes, Ashlyn?
So I know that judges get to like choose their sentence based on how they feel the person responded. But for the state of Connecticut, which is where I'm pretty sure she commits her crime, at least that's where she was in prison, a 5-year minimum mandatory sentence applies if the person was armed for a first-degree burglary.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a person, so she's fine.
Like there's probably people in that same cell that are in there for weed possession that are in there longer than this chick was. I'm like, this is so stupid.
It's yeah.
I digress.
Yeah. Also, since we're talking about the Connecticut justice system, I have a quick thing. This happens in part 2, but I'm going to reveal it now. When Nicole calls her, and she like freaks out because she's just like, what if she comes here? I'm like, she's going against her parole.
Book is like, I think tries to put
the state you're in parole. You can't.
I know.
That's literally against the law, and then she just stays there, and I'm like, that's not how this works.
This whole book was like, I would give my main character an edge to make her stand out from all the other heroines that I've written about. What about jail time? And then proceeds to just like watch a few episodes of Orange is the New Black and then inserts that as like, this is how she will behave. This is how the criminal justice system operates.
Do you want to know how I understand parole? It's because I watched Shameless. And one of the characters has parole, and she's not allowed to leave the state that she committed the crime in for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So, like... But yeah, I was like, I don't understand how she... Anyway, we'll get there when we get there, because I have a lot of thoughts about that part of the book, because I was like, what the fuck? Like, it's just... Yeah, we'll get there. Anyway, chapter 4. Aiden, it's the next day, and Aiden's not happy. He's already got a headache because womp womp, he's got family problems. Oh no, his family doesn't like him. Boo-hoo.
Oh, give him some baggage.
Yeah, give him some baggage. He has a shitty, like, rich family who, like, don't like him for some reason. Don't understand. But they're just a bunch of assholes. They want sashimi at 9 a.m. in the morning just to be assholes instead of muffins. And you know what? I get it. I would get why Aiden doesn't like his family. He also goes and tells an employee to go get a swig of bourbon from his desk drawer. And I was like, HR, where are you?
And he does that shit so many times throughout the book. Yes, Ashlyn.
So one of the places that I've interned with, they're back, like they have front of office, which is like sales, and back of office, which is like the rest of the company. Every single person in back of office had a bottle of alcohol somewhere in their like vicinity that was opened and was being consumed during work time. And it was like a thing. They just hide it before like upper management walked through with customers.
Oh my God, no. It was the fact that he just like told an employee to go take a drink. Like I was just like, come on, man.
Also, so this is just before I say anything. This was from Aiden's bottle, correct? Like he tells his employee, like, here's a bottle. Isn't this less than a year after COVID, or not less than, but like a year and a half after COVID, and they're all swapping spit, and they're all like, I'm just saying.
Quick question: I never mentioned masks.
Yeah.
That's a little weird. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. Anyway, also, Grandma hates online stuff because she's just like, that's weird. And he's like, hey, Grandma, we're a year after COVID. That's the only way we made sales last year. Get with the times, Graham. Edna. That's her. No, that's the aunt. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know if the grandma's ever given a name. If she was, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't remember. Anyway, yeah,
Gammy.
So Gammy. Gam. How about Gam? I like that one better.
Gam. Let's do it.
You know she would rather be called Gigi, though.
Gigi. It's so true.
But yeah, I didn't really write much down for this chapter because basically nothing happens. But yeah, Aiden's family sucks. Aiden hates them because they're stuck up.
I also only wrote one thing for this chapter. You want to know what it was?
What did you write?
One thing. The country accent on the audiobook reader has me rolling in quotations. My cock ain't never been so hard. Shoo! The only thing I have.
Oh, we should note that I read the physical copy and then Lauren and Ashlyn did listen to the book. So we had two different experiences.
Props to the audio reader for Aiden, who literally made me never want to hear a Southern accent and dirty talk ever again. That was uncomfortable.
He was working with the material he had.
Yeah, no offense to that actor. He did great. It killed the idea of Aiden for me a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Also, on top of it, before he goes into this meeting, he like is contemplating Stella again because he's just like I shouldn't pursue her and all that. Like I got so hard because she was in my office, and then he's just like, oh, but is she off limits? And I'm like, yes, she's off limits. You hired her.
She is your underling.
You literally were a part of the hiring process to bring her on board. Yes, she's off limits. Number 3. That's a 4, 5. I've lost track.
I know.
Yeah. So he goes into the meeting and they get snippy. That's kind of it. That's all that happens. Chapter 5. On this chapter summary, at the beginning, I just wrote, good Lord, that chapter was too long.
Now that you say that, I actually do have a lot more bullet points for this chapter than previous ones. So that's probably accurate.
Yeah. Well, this was the point in which I added into my tab index. Like there's too much like internal monologue. Like there's just too much.
Yeah.
Because it just drags on, and there just does not need to be this much internal monologuing, dialogue, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, Stella stays late again. It's the same day that Aiden had his conference with his family, And she's like strolling around the store thinking of him when suddenly she hears a noise in the cookware section. Surprise! It's Aiden drinking in the cookware section. He's opened that bottle of bourbon and he's getting drunk because, you know, family sucks. Wah, wah. Wah, wah. And there's just some banter, and they're kind of both revealing parts of their past. This is where we find out that Aiden was sent to Tennessee to go live with his Uncle Hank and Aunt Edna. For some reason. Don't know why. Apparently his dad was settling back into life and he just sent his son away. So Aiden always kind of uses like positivity kind of like as a shield, like from his family, and just tries to be better than them. So that's why he's drinking, because he just feels like he's no better than them when he gets like frustrated and all of that. And then here is where Stella kind of opens up a little bit about what happened with the robbery. She doesn't reveal the full thing. She doesn't reveal that she stayed with the guy after he got shot or anything. She just reveals like that she and her friend, was this where Nicole was revealed? Yes, it was. She talks, she doesn't like say her name outright to Aiden, but she's thinking about Nicole, and she kind of is like talking like about this very toxic, very, very toxic relationship that she and this friend had. Anyway, a lot of banter and just revealing parts of their past kind of happens. And then they decide to do a faux gift exchange where they run around the store picking up the quote-unquote best Christmas gifts for each other. I hate to say it, I kind of thought this part was like a tiny bit cute. Just a little bit. Like... But that also reminds me of like the Boo Basket trend recently, and I did that with my partner, so maybe that's where that itty bitty bit. I'm like, nah, this is kind of cute. But at the same time, they barely know each other, so it's also weird.
I think it's the fact that it's just like in his store, and he definitely knows the inventory, and so it's like, even if she does get him something, it's like it's not like a complete surprise. He's like, oh yeah, we had that in stock on aisle 4, you know?
Yeah. Also, what I wrote down too is like, why does she keep laughing at his jokes? They suck. This man's not funny. Okay, you go.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, you want to know what's interesting about that? Because I actually have a note, and this is at the beginning of the conversation in the cookware department, where he tells some joke, it's irrelevant, and she makes a comment about how she refuses to like award him with a laugh because, quote, that's what a girl with a blowout and heels would do.
Yes.
And I was like, hi, it's me. Hi, I'm the blowout and heels that would laugh at this man's jokes. And then 5 seconds later, she's like, hee girl, get a grip. It's okay to like have basic human emotions.
Exactly. And it's like, you're not different from trying to like hide your quote unquote emotions from this dude. And then I just also wrote down, you aren't like other girls. Like it just kept giving the manic pixie dream girl thing of like, I'm just different. I also wrote down like throughout this whole thing of like her revealing her past and stuff, I said, again, I get that we are attracted to each other. I get that there's this mutual physical attraction to each other. He is still your boss. You should not be revealing all of this very personal information to your boss.
Yes.
Like, do not do that. Guys, if you... you know, this is not an advice show. but maybe listen to this. Shared a ton of things about your personal life with your boss. Don't do that. Don't. It's a really bad idea. Keep your personal life personal and your work life life.
Especially if you live in a right to work state.
Very true.
Yes, I can speak as someone that very recently overshared at a coworker function. Granted, my boss was not present. It was all coworkers. I very much overshared in a setting where we were consuming drinks. And while everyone responded positively to it, I felt guilty for the first time in my life as oversharing. And if you've listened to any episode of this podcast for this one, you'd be like, Lauren, ashamed of oversharing. never before until that moment, and I can very much vouch for that. Of like, maybe don't, maybe say as little as you feel comfortable with, and then reserve the rest for your personal life. It's a lot easier that way.
Exactly. And also, like, you got to protect yourself. And again, I understand, like, suspending the disbelief. They're attracted to each other. They, like, really want a bone. I get it. But what if but what if things went south? You've shared all this information.
He'd use it against you. Especially because it's regarding your criminal record.
Fire you. Yes. Mm-hmm. Like, do not share do not share your personal information with your boss.
Yes.
Anyway, moving forward, they decide to go do the gift thing, and Stella, like, goes, okay, go, and then Aiden runs off, but then she gets distracted by his ass, because she's like, damn those buns. Literally, that is what it said in the book. She says, look at those buns. He's got a bubble butt.
Yes, they literally call it a bubble butt, and I was like, you just turned me off in, like, a single sentence. I don't know. It's not for me.
Who uses the term bubble butt in 2020 anymore?
Because that's like an insult. There's a way to be like, oh, they have a nice ass without
that man has got a fat ass.
Yes. God.
Anyway, so yeah, they run off and she's like, oh, I don't know what to get him. And then she's like, I got it. And so she runs off. They meet in the break room. He's made hot cocoa because apparently he's already thought of a gift for her for Christmas, which isn't fucking weird. Not at all. But
it's
the gifts are like
day.
Yeah, it's her second day. Surprise.
My bad.
It's like second or third day. Anywhere, they reveal the gifts. Stella gets like, he gifts her, like, by the way, this isn't meant to be real. Like, they aren't meant to keep the gifts. But he, quote unquote, gifts her a keychain necklace so that she could keep the key to the window so that she doesn't lock herself in again.
When I searched window shopping by Tessa Bailey on TikTok, there's a lot of the whole scenarios type TikToks, like the one that we posted with Napoleon Bonaparte that I'm still shitting myself over. That's hilarious. People have made several of these for window shopping, and one of them was this, where it's like, when she gets stuck in a window and calls out to her boss for help, he gifts her a necklace with a key on it. And it's like a song in the background where it's like, you know, like sexy songs. I was like, sir, get a grip. Get a grip.
You know what? I also have never heard of a keychain necklace. Like, I was like, you mean a lanyard? I was like, did you get her a fancy lanyard?
I was picturing like Libby Lou, like Justice type best friend forever necklaces where like one person has the lock and then you have the key and they fit together when you're
oh my God.
It was so tacky.
I was just imagining just like a long gold chain because like this is also meant to be gold. So I was like, I don't know what this looks like. I can't. And she gets him binoculars. Why?
I thought that was so fucking stupid. I don't know why. I can't tell you why.
Was it because he's like everybody is always looking up is what she said?
It didn't make any sense.
But he loved it because, you know, it's Stella. Anyway, we get more banter. We get more flirting. And then we get introduced to the love contract, which apparently you can sign through Vivant. Yes. So then, like, basically you can say, like, I am consenting in this relationship, fill this out. It's a whole legal document for HR purposes. So I just went, love contract. God, that's gross. I went ... Is that a real legal thing?
It is, yeah.
It is. I did not know that. So yes, listeners, this is a real thing. They're not actually called a love contract. That's just kind of the term. It's more of just like a declaration of like a relationship between two consenting working parties. Basically just lists what is appropriate within the workplace and what is not appropriate. Majority of the actions in the rest of this book are inappropriate. Because I did. Because surprise, I did actually look through an example of a love contract, and sexual intercourse on the premise of a workplace is very much against the contract. Surprise, surprise.
Maybe they didn't get the memo. Maybe they didn't read the fine print.
I don't think they did. Or Aiden wrote in a little bit of the fine print just so he could bang. Anyway, and Aiden keeps like being like, oh God, like I don't want, like, I want to do this by the books. I want to be a good guy and like I want to do right by you. And I'm just like, dude, you haven't been right by her this entire time. You literally hired her out of a prowess of finding her attractive, like out of like this whole thing. Like you started on the wrong foot. I get that you're trying to be a quote unquote good guy, but like you're not.
No, it almost felt like the way that it was written, because it's all like internal monologue, like you mentioned, very like prosy descriptor. It felt almost like he was trying to convince himself, which obviously it is, but it felt more of like, this is how I'm justifying these actions.
Not just convince himself, convince us as readers as well that he is a good guy. And I'm like, no, he's not.
Yeah. Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. Anyway, our girl Stella's like, whoa, that's a little fast. And I agree with that. I can agree with Stella on that. So yeah, that's the end of chapter 5. And now we're getting into chapter 6, which is when we get our first kind of more sexy scene where Aiden pleasures himself in the shower. That's kind of really the only thing that really happens with this chapter is him fantasizing about Stella.
Form was like cruel and unusual punishment. It was like, because that actor for Aiden put his whole butt dussy into that scene, okay? Like, props to him. He was really in the moment, but I didn't want to be in the moment. Like, I wanted to read the print version simply so I could, like, morph this in my head to a way that was digestible and say, he's all up in my ear, being like, oh yeah, Stella and her damn pussy. Like, I just cannot handle it. I was like, please, sir. Sorry, I had to get that out. It was so bad.
Yeah, this was interesting. I will say my favorite line within that whole thing of him like pleasuring himself and imagining Stella is he was talking about her breasts and he said they would be ripe, the ripe fruit ready to be stroked and sucked. And I was like, huh?
Sir. I think in that like same paragraph, he also talks about his balls tightening.
Yeah.
I was like, huh? Is that a thing that could happen? I don't know. God.
If you guys can't tell, we don't have. Yeah. We don't know that. We don't know that part.
Sorry, I'm not packing heat. I hate to inform you.
I'm not packing either. I need an outside source to confirm or deny. Yeah, and then he's like eating a bunch of donuts because he's stressed. Because by the way, also this is the day that Stella is revealing her window for his family who are going to be there. So he's like stressed out. So then he gets in the car to drive to the store. He parks out front, which I don't know how you can do. Avenue.
I thought about that so many times.
A week and a half before Christmas. It's fine. I'm not thinking of logistics. Anyway, he sees Stella out front, and then she climbs into his car. And then they get hot and steamy by not making out. It's just them talking. And then, like, panting at each other like dogs. Like, we're trying to build tension. We're trying, but it's just not working. We know that they want to bang, so just let them do it at this point.
It's sick and twisted because right before all the whole like heavy breathing and dirty talk, she also like goes on some like bender of like, oh, I see you for who you really are. Like, you just want to make a mess. Like, you're not a rule follower, blah, 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 blah. And I had to write, quote, her and Aiden get in this car, and she basically talks about seeing him for who he really is underneath the tidy, neat, cheery appearance. It declares that he's quote unquote messy underneath. He gets a hard on from this typical manic pixie dream girl behavior.
Oh, dude, he should. No, you have to talk about the two sides of him. Remember how he's like, all girls want there's two sides of me, and all girls want is one or the other. One is the nice guy attitude who like treats him like a gentleman. The other is when I get rough in bed because I like rough sex.
And like, they don't like that because they're nice delicate flowers.
I can't have these New York City socialites. They're too delicate and they want a gentleman, and I need a girl who's willing to do reverse cowgirl.
That's why he wants an e-girl. And then as soon as he like is done with the excitement and the news of it all, he's like, now we'll change her into a docile housewife that I'm gonna get sick of vanilla sex with. Like, it's so
oh my god, I did just realize they do keep mentioning just missionary, don't they? Throughout the rest of this book, the only sex they mention really is missionary.
Yes. 100%.
Not even interesting.
Hey, but he's doing all that sweet southern talk in her ear of like, tighten your damn pussy for me.
Lauren, I need you to talk about your audio experience when you heard damp pussy for the first time in that southern accent.
I'm not even I had to play it for Ashlyn and Sid before we started recording, so I was so appalled by how bad it was. But this is during his self-pleasuring scene earlier this chapter, and he's like just like thinking of what he wants to do to Stella, and he makes a comment about her damn pussy, and I had to write audiobook. Aiden says damn pussy, and then I have the cowboy emoji. I've seen a lot, but I've never seen the vagina described as quote unquote damp in a sexy context or any context, honestly. And Sid, you said that was indicative of a yeast infection.
Yeah. I was like, girl, if you got a damp pussy, you may have a yeast infection, or that's the definition of swamp ass.
Also, too, because if you're saying damp to me, that's like light. This is gross. It's like light moisture. If you're thinking about like,
damp.
You know, chafing and friction and like, you know, insertion in general, you're going to want a little more than just a light misting.
You want a little more than a light misting.
You want to change it. You want to change your shower head from steam and mist to the jet setting, okay? Listen, I get the ladies wet like a slip and slide.
All Aiden is saying is that he just he gets women wet like the Mr. bottle that you use for your plants.
Hey, it's probably he saw her cleaning the window and the display with a little like, you know, and like was that was so good.
Oh my god.
Cursed.
Anyway, yeah, they deep breathe at each other and are just like literally just petting each other. Like being like, I'm so hot and horny. And just as Aiden is about to like pull her into his lap, there's a car horn and they must separate because surprise, his grandma and his dad are like parked behind. And employees are coming out of the store, and Aiden's like, oh god, did anyone see us? Apparently not. One person did, but that was Jordan, and Jordan's on their side. So again, where is HR?
Literally blindfolded.
Where are they?
Back turned.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. So. Oh right, I did say because you talked about how they get deep. I literally wrote down in the summary they do drop some lore, but meh, I don't care.
Not you not caring. Oh my god.
Yes.
You're right though. I mean, it's literally just her like
Are you talking about the lore dump with like the Nicole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, I wrote this down as being so important because I was so mad that that Stella is blaming Nicole for all of Stella's choices.
Yes. Yes.
I was
That
so
is
mad
so
about
true.
that.
I know.
But like, I
It's like,
didn't
yeah, I
care.
get-
But I didn't care because it was
Exactly.
in between two Smex things. So I'm like, it's a weird place to drop it.
Also, who immediately wants to launch into filthy, dirty talk after talking about how they have family problems and like robbed a restaurant?
Raising her hand?
Let me drop it up for you, and now let's
And now
talk
let's
to each
get
other and breathe.
Is that not foreplay?
No, because then every
No.
therapist would have you blacklisted from their client list.
Very true. As I think I said this in a book a couple books back. You need a therapist, not sex.
Agreed, especially for Stella.
Apparently she went to a therapist though, because we did get that
that's
drop of like
right.
don't waste your
She has a
emotional.
Dr.
Whatever.
Stinkerman or something.
Yeah, we don't even remember his name because he barely shows up. Anyway, oh yeah. So now we get chapter 7, which is the reveal of the window. But it literally opens with her being like, "We went to a museum when I was a child," and I just wrote down, "Dear God, just get to the opening of like the window. We don't need this." I was like, this was when I added in my tab of the face, which is where I roll my eyes.
Did y'all to see this? I have no notes for chapter 7. Do you see that big gap? I gave up.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this was just where I was just going like, oh my God, I'm just so tired. Like, this is just so long for no reason. And like, yeah, anyway, we're getting to the window reveal. Graham starts kind of like acting shady and is like making comments to Stella and being like, oh, like kind of implying that she saw Aiden and her. But that's never confirmed nor denied. There's some talk between Nicole and Stella, and they're doing their best friend in the rom-com thing. And the window looks good. Everyone's like, wow, that looks great. That's a really good window. And everyone's like cheering and being like, yeah, this is awesome. Like they've never seen a window before. They're like, holy fuck, this is a good ass window. And I'm like, cool.
Good Lord.
So sorry, I'm just pausing because there's a couple things that happen in this chapter that like make me so mad. One of them is that there was a lot of in inner monologue of Stella of just like, I can't be a part of his world, or I'm not a part of his world kind of thing, and like doing more of the will they won't they. And I'm like, I'm just rolling my eyes at it. I'm just like, is it because you're trying, like, I think they're trying to imply that, like, you know, there are different classes, there are different backgrounds, you know, she's an ex-convict, he's not, he's like an upper, he commits white collar crime, she commits blue collar crime.
Hey, he might probably refer to his crimes as crimes of passion if you asked him.
Exactly. Literally all the HR issues. But there was just a lot of that, and I'm just like, I don't understand why there is so much of this talk of her just like being like, I can't be a part of this. I'm not a part. Like, like it just got so annoying. Like and I think it's because it's just an overused trope, especially in like these shorter romance books, where I know we have to get the plot moving. I know we don't have a lot of time. I know we don't have a lot of pages to like work through all this, but the pacing doesn't make sense within this book with how much, because we know Aiden wants Stella and Stella obviously wants Aiden. Again, I think this kind of falls into the issue we kind of had with the switching POVs, because like if there were more tension, this would play in well. But
That's
because
exactly what I was
we
thinking.
know that he obviously wants her, like this just kind of self-deprecation just doesn't work. It makes me feel like she's constantly like, oh, well, I need to make this up for myself because I need to prove this to myself. And I'm like, girl, you haven't proven anything. Like you haven't grown as a character at all. Truly.
No.
There's no growth. Like, it's just plot things are happening to move the plot along rather than like a character choice is doing it because it's a character choice and then plot happens because of that, you know?
Yeah, and this is why I texted Sid and Ash from Context listeners in our group chat, like my thoughts as I was reading this book. And I think at some point I said, like, I wish Tessa Bailey knew that it was okay to just write porn without plot. Yeah. Because I think there's not really a good grasp of both in this, to the point where the plot is being lost on us and feels very contrived. When in all actuality, if she's the Michelangelo dirty talk, we can just have that and it would be probably the same outcome. Like, it's
like there are huge sections of this book that could have been taken out and would have made more sense. I actually saw this also because someone also commented, because they were talking about like, is this a short story? Is this a novella? Is it just a standalone book? Because I'm confused, because like this book could have been 50 pages shorter if they had taken out some things. And honestly, the book probably would have been better for it.
I think so too.
Will I say we have read some not bad, but some questionable romance books that are just smut. But we did choose those on purpose because we knew. Mm-hmm. So maybe in the future we'll find an actual good example of a good smut book that's just smut, no plot.
I'm going to make it my life's mission to find one.
Yeah,
my words.
Hey, listeners. Let us know if you have any good suggestions. We'd love to hear it.
We have a Google form that you can fill out. We do.
Please. We want to hear what you think. We love you.
Please, we love you, and we will kiss you platonically and consensually if you do.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Mommy loves you.
Oh, Aiden wished his mom loved him. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sorry.
What's his mom, by the way? On top of that, where was Aiden's mom?
True. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's it. Where did his mom go? I just assumed she just died. Just like she never gets mentioned. He just gets shipped off for some reason.
Yeah. Oh well.
Anyway, going back to the actual story. But we kind of get a little more info on Jordan too, because Jordan kind of dumps that she and Seamus, they have like this mutual attraction to each other, but she won't date him because she doesn't want to date someone who like isn't emotionally capable to be like within a serious relationship, which she believes he is. Like he's just too immature. And she reveals also here, I believe, that she had an ex-fiance who she left before the wedding. And we get a little more info. We get more info later, but she kind of recognizes that she doesn't want to like be with someone who is not emotionally mature enough for her. And I literally, like, I would have loved to have read that story, because I just feel like there's so much more emotional weight and an easier way to connect with those two characters and like their love story, especially like coming from a someone who like identifies as a woman, I would feel much more connected to reading a book about another woman experiencing something and not wanting liking someone, but feeling like I couldn't be in a relationship with them because I just felt like they weren't ready or just like emotionally mature. Like, that's so much more compelling than an ex-convict who wants to be a window decorator and then suddenly runs into a multimillionaire and they fall in love.
I think and this is a comment that repeatedly came up in at least the reviews that I came across for this book. I think we are just very deprived of an actual reason for chemistry and why these two should be together, other than just like primal attraction. Because that's the only reason we're given throughout the entire story. Spoiler alert, there is no deeper plot here. They like each other because they think they're hot, and that's it. And the fact that we have these side characters that are barely given any screen time that actually have like conflicts, but like meaningful conflicts built into the fiber of their relationship. You literally look at that, like you said, and you're like, well, why couldn't we have some of that over here? So why
can't we have maybe some more witty banter between Jordan and Seamus, and like them recognizing or like working things out for like him to prove to her, be like, hey, I may like come off in this childlike or this more immature way, but I am serious about you. And like, let me show you all of these things. I would much rather see that than this random dude who's just like, I just have a feeling. Like, she's just having a feeling. Yeah, basically. So yeah, grandma gets a little sketchy and all of that, and oh well, I guess it's fine. It's like not that good. It's a little flashy. And I do agree with Aiden when he was just like, that's literally the whole point of a window. And I was like, yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong here. Basically Aiden gets like a little defensive of Stella, and even though Stella's like, don't defend me, he doesn't anyway.
I don't need saving, but I know you're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, wow. It's very much that. And so they're like, oh, we don't know, we should hire her. And then he's like, yeah, no, we're going to. So yeah, now Stella is fully employed by Vivant. Anyway, the team goes out to a bar and they're all drinking and having fun. That's where we get more of the lore dump from Jordan, because Seamus shows up and he's like wearing like a backwards cap or something like that. And they're like doing more witty banter, and Stella is thinking about Aiden. We're this random like, I'm imagining like a skinny white boy with a bunch of piercings, like what's his name? It's like the the green clay motion cartoon things. Oh, it was like from the 90s. Started with a G or something.
Wallace and Gromit?
No, not Gromit. Not Gromit. It's green.
What? Gumby. Yes.
Gumby. I'm imagining a Gumby built Pierce white man who's like a little bit emo comes up and is like, hey, I'll buy you a drink. And this girl is just like, no, I can only think of that bow tie wearing Tennessee man. And then Aiden like shows up and is just like possessive for no reason. And then we're going to get into chapter 8. And then this is where this is going to be our halfway point. So this is where we'll end part 1. But let's first finish up chapter 8. So we're back in Aiden's point of view, and he literally says, like, at one point, he can't have her. And I just went, okay, Batman.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so he like scares off the guy, and he's like, is he your type? Like, and they start doing more witty, flirty banter. She's like, no, you're my type. And like, it's kind of big and dramatic and everything, which makes no sense. At one point she is like, he's like, oh, is that your type kind of thing? And she's like, no, like, I'm also really attracted to your Aunt Edna stories. And I'm like, what about the Aunt Edna stories makes him sexy? What are you talking about? What?
I would like to believe that Tessa Bailey had a good time writing this book. And if she partaked in some peppermint schnapps, hot cocoa as she wrote it, I wouldn't blame her. This would make a lot more sense if she did, actually.
It would. Oh my god. Anyway, so like, what are you laughing at?
I just like how my notes per chapter just get progressively shorter and shorter until they completely stop because I've given up on this book. Can I tell you my note for chapter 8?
Yeah, go ahead.
The man fingers her aggressively and literally growls, "Not my cup of tea, but okay."
Yeah. So basically he like pushes Stella into a dark corner and they're like witty banner, and then he fingers her and she's like, "This is the sexiest thing that's ever happened to me." I want to say something, but I don't want to put it on the internet, so I'm not going to.
If you put it in chat, I'll say it for you. I have no filter.
Now, you know what? Just thinking about it, my mother listens to this podcast.
Oh, okay. Hi, Mom.
I'll say it in private later. Anyway, I just can't imagine being fingered being very sexy.
No. Thank you. That's why I said not my cup of tea. It's also because they haven't had their first kiss yet.
Oh my god. When fingering gets mentioned within these books, I'm like, it's my mother listens to this podcast. Fuck it. It's not that
good. Yes, Ashlyn?
I would like to point out that that another thing that happens just before this scene is that he's like, if we start doing this wrong, then we won't ever be able to do it right. And then he is the one that continues to initiate.
Yes. He does that at every turn.
Yes! Okay, so this is when the love contract gets brought back up again. And Stella's still like, I don't know. And then then this man just gets horny on me and it's just like, fuck it, let's fuck.
It's so weirdly like, I don't know if victim complex is quite the word I'm looking for, but it's just something ingrained in that, you know, where it's like, I want to get away with the things that I'm doing, but I don't want to accept that this is morally wrong and probably going to have consequences. And so I'm going to say and do whatever I need to make it sound right while still getting the outcome that I want / feel as I deserve. And then Stella, who, regardless of whether she consents to it or not, is inherently on the lower end of this power imbalance and therefore is at risk of your actions regardless of what happens. And you are secure in your position at your company and nothing bad will happen to you. And therefore you have no right to feel guilty and pressure her into these things. It's terrible.
Exactly.
It's awful.
Exactly. So here's also what I wrote down for about all of this. Is like, I know the contract is to set everything like quote unquote right because he wants to like follow, I'm putting that in quotations, the rules, but you hired her because you wanted to see her again. Therefore, all of the actions which are taking place after you hired her are wrong. Like, it is morally incorrect.
Yes, and what happens if they break up?
That's what I'm
she's
thinking.
Still employed. Exactly. Is he just going to be a good person and like deal with the awkwardness and like avoid the first war of Vivant, like the plague? No, he's going to find a way to let her go or like convince her to leave. And then she has to pick up a job somewhere else, which is going to be significantly difficult with her incarceration record. She's fucked.
Exactly. And like, look, guys, we know we're meant to our reality disbelieving it. It's not real. We know that. It is so hard because also on top of it, this is the other note I wrote down from this. Is like, so he's just proving he's not a good guy or he even respects HR or human resources at all or any of the policies within his own company. Like,
yes.
The sorry, I'm trying to read my own notes, and I was so agitated that I can't read them. Give me just a moment.
You're so good.
Oh, I said the lady from a couple chapters ago, the HR lady, wasn't just eyeing Stella because she was in jail. Aiden just likes to break the rules. Like, that's the joke I made within my own notes. It was like, the HR lady is only keeping her eyes out because she knows Aiden, like, this is shady.
Yeah.
Like, I would feel like, okay, so coming from someone who works within corporate America, if I saw this within my workplace, I would be so fucking uncomfortable. Like, everybody knows why you got hired. And it's so, and especially within the job crisis in the situation we are in now, I would be so beyond pissed. I'd be like, my boss is literally hiring this chick because he wants to bang her.
Yeah, and I don't know how someone like Jordan is so cool with all this, because if my colleague is dating our, like, basically, like, you know, owner of the company, for lack of a better term, right? You know, inherently the rules are going to be different for her than they are for you. And that tolerance for her mistakes and shortcomings are going to be weighed very differently than what yours are. And that's just inherently going to feel shitty. Like,
is Jordan a girl boss and just becoming work besties with her so she can get a promotion?
Actually, work. Actually, that kind of eats.
Actually, yeah, Jordan, we love that.
She's the best character in this book. Anyway.
But yeah, that's kind of the end of chapter 8, because basically she orgasms and Aiden's like, meet me downstairs. and then she's like, okay. And that's
Aiden.
That's the middle point within this book, and where we are going to end our midpoint review of Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. Now, Ashlyn, do you have any questions for us before we wrap up this episode?
I always have questions for you guys. So we spent a lot of time at the end talking about Aiden. How do you feel about Stella at this point in the book?
Boring.
Bored.
A wet piece of paper.
Yeah, I just feel like it's weird because it feels like she's trying to be, like we've said, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, but like the target audience for Manic Pixie Dream Girls aren't the target audience that are reading this book. Like, typically Manic Pixie Dream Girls are targeted.
This is
sorry, my
Wally.
cat. My cat just knocked down his cat tree. Yeah, so. But yeah, like the target audience for this book is not the same target audience who fantasize about Manic Pixie Dream Girls, and maybe some women are like thinking about it like being the Manic Pixie Dream Girl for a guy like this, but like I don't know. I don't understand her characterization. I don't understand her motivations. I understand some of the guilt in which does kept getting brought up. Because obviously, being incarcerated, going through everything she went through is very traumatizing. But I almost want... like, it's just not appropriate within the time space of and content matter of the book in which we're reading. Like, this isn't an area where this is an appropriate space for those conversations and those internal thoughts to be fully discussed. And it just feels like a cheap way to add, quote unquote, like character and like a like dark past to a character where like we could have done, it could have been something else.
I fully agree. And as you were saying that, I think it kind of clicked for me. Aiden as a character, we know that his problematic relationship with his family, his like the way he navigates being the general manager here, you know, those pressures inform his personality. We see that time and time again. The dad jokes are from Aunt Edna. The, you know, constant pressure to perform is from his overbearing grandparents and the way that the company is, you know, shaking the past couple years. Exactly. We see so much of how his past informs his personality, and therefore he feels like a well-rounded and distinct character versus Stella. We know her past. It does not inform her personality.
No.
It feels to me like it's just Stella and incarceration. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like her whole character is this thing that happened off screen, and it's not demonstrated in a don't tell way where it doesn't like the only instance we get of that is the claustrophobia within the window. There's nothing else that comes up. It's always just recounting her past to Aiden in a dialogue. We don't see that. And that to me is what ruins it, because I feel like we are missing a vital chunk of that. Like A connects to C, we're missing B. And 100%. I think she lacks substance in that way. And even in the audiobook, which could be contributed to like the actors that were hired for the audiobook, but even listening to the audiobook, Aiden felt so much more lively and like present in the book than Stella did. Stella felt like a reader insert in a Wattpad fan fiction, where I could very easily be like, I could overlay like literally anyone's personality, mannerisms, appearance into her, and it would feel the same. And I think that's where she was lost on me.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think, yeah, I think there just could have been a different direction than having her. It also just didn't feel like Tessa Bailey maybe did the most appropriate research into what being convicted means to an individual, or like what happens. Because yes, obviously Stella went through all that, had a therapist, is out, maybe suddenly deals with claustrophobia and all of that. But we also don't get any talk. Well, like we get some talk of her being like, I'm still trying to find myself out in the world and like trying to figure these things out because I've been incarcerated for these 4 years. But we really don't see those struggles. Like she just keeps getting handed things. Like literally the job of Avant. Literally like this perfect man. Like all of these things, which is not realistic for someone post incarceration. And it just feels disconnected and ungenuine. And you know what? This is a romance book, so maybe we're being a little too hard, but at the same time, maybe this shouldn't have been included within the book in the first place.
Yeah.
So this one, I asked Lauren off the podcast already, but I wanted her to talk about it a little bit. So Lauren, you've mentioned your love for inappropriate workplace romances more than once. How do you feel about this inappropriate workplace romance?
When I think of the type of workplace romances that I want to see a lot more of the will they, won't they. I want to see both parties being, I don't want to see such an empower balance where it feels wrong on every level. You know what I mean? Like this one kind of does. I want it to feel like will they, won't they, months of consideration, like, you know, weeks of like getting to know each other to determine if this is even the right path. Like I want it to actually feel more fleshed out and realistic and not rushed, because that is something that should be a careful decision, like in the real world, if you are trying to pursue a workplace relationship, right? And this book, this literally takes place over the span of like 2 weeks, give or take. And that to me is so like, it just kills it for me. It's like there was no actual real consideration in this. There's no real like drama or tension in this because it's only 2 weeks. Like literally on what did we say on chapter 3? Already discussing like kissing each other. Like it just felt so like this. Okay, actually, you know what? I've rambled a lot. This is what it is. The workplace romance in this felt like it was there just to give tension. Like this story could have been done without it, and it would have been the same to me.
Yes.
Versus an actual workplace romance. We get that will they, won't they? We get that tension. It serves a purpose. And here it doesn't, because it's thrown out the window shopping, in chapter 3. And so it ruined it. I ruined it. I want my Jumin Han from Mystic Messenger. Anyway. I stand my point.
Do you feel as though these characters have... Oh.
Do we pick that up, by the way, Lauren? We heard that.
Good.
Oh my god. Do you feel as though these characters have any chemistry together at this moment? That we are in the book right now, without spoilers.
They're obviously hot and bothered for each other, but that's the only driving factor. So I would say the only driving chemistry here is like between hydrogen and oxygen. It's like the most basic chemistry. It's the bare minimum.
I agree with that. That's actually pretty much exactly what I was going to say.
Like, they're just hot for each other. That's it.
The dirty talk was good. For at least for me, I thought it was okay. I think that's why I'm not 100% like they suck. You know what I mean? But it's only because the actual presentation of the steaminess is solid. So therefore, it feels like they have sexual chemistry, but not romantic chemistry. What?
Mm-hmm. What's so funny is that usually I'm the one who says like the erotica was pretty okay, but like everything else kind of sucked. I didn't like the erotica in this. I didn't like it.
I didn't like any of the physical stuff. Don't get me wrong.
No,
I just liked the dialogue, I suppose, if that makes sense.
I didn't even like the dialogue. I think it's because I did there is a TikTok that's going around online right now that's saying like, oh, what if a guy in a romance book actually said this stuff to you in real life? And it made me realize how cringy some stuff are.
Oh god.
And the TikTok and people were like giving responses. And was like, someone was like doing a quote from a book was like, will you be my good girl? And she's just like, no, fuck off. And it's just like, like in real life, if someone said this stuff to you, would you be turned on?
Come here, let's get out the window, sweetheart. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
She's walking away.
I'm okay.
Yeah, you're right. You know what?
So
I rescind my opinion.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, they're attracted to each other, but that's the only thing that's driving this. Like, I don't understand why we're even wanting to pursue a romantic relationship with the other person. But well, this is where we are going to end. With our first half of Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. Hope you enjoyed the episode. You can listen to more on Apple Music, Spotify, and honestly, wherever you probably find podcasts, that's where we're going to be. If you want updates on what we are uploading or just what we're getting up to, you can follow us at the RPH Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, X, previously known as Twitter. We do have a YouTube. Sometimes things go up there, and we have a Twitch. And honestly, if you kind of just look us up, we'll probably be on there if you want to give us a follow. But hey, thanks for listening. Let us know what you think. We always are looking for suggestions. And you know what? I hope you have an amazing night, you raunchy reindeer.
Join us next week where we will discuss part 2 of Window Shopping. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Raunchy Power Hour. Find us on Instagram and Twitter at the RPH Podcast. Send us book recs to our email, raunchypowerhour@gmail.com, or at the link in our bio on any of our socials. As always, stay raunchy.